Hello. Good evening, everybody. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and exactly 7 p.m. Central Time if you're in the Central Time Zone. So I want to give a few minutes to let folks jump on. And just want to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about me, my business, and our mission and goals. So I am Sadija Smiley. I am the founder and CEO of SAILS, which is an acronym for Stillborn and Infant Loss Support. And we are a nonprofit organization. So this evening, I want to talk to you a little bit about what we do as an organization, as well as whether or not a nonprofit is a business and some of the benefits of having a nonprofit organization, how that benefits you as well as the community. So Stillborn and Infant Loss Support was founded in honor of my daughter, Aviana Celine. I lost my daughter at 36 weeks pregnant, and she was stillborn, which means that the baby passes away inside the uterus and the mom still has to deliver the baby, although the baby unfortunately is not alive. This happens a lot in pregnancies, and I think we don't realize just how often that does happen. Every year about 25,000 babies in the United States are stillborn. And so the organization, our whole mission and goals and purpose is to spread awareness around stillbirth, miscarriages, and pregnancy loss, as well as support those families and individuals that have been affected by that. It's a really devastating time and a tragedy to, have your dreams shattered once your baby passes away, when you have, thought about and dreamed about names and godparents and decorations for the room, and whether it's a boy or a girl. For myself, we had the baby shower. We knew she was a girl. We named her. And then unfortunately, we came home empty-handed. So I wanted to talk again a little bit about, what a nonprofit is and what it is not. I want to bust some myths around nonprofits, right? So is nonprofit a business? Yes. A nonprofit organization is a type of business. And basically the nonprofit business is a business that all of the profits that the business makes goes back into. So a nonprofit is founded for charitable, religious, education, or scientific purposes. And so every dollar that the organization earns or raises goes back into the organization. So unlike an LLC or any other type of business, there's no owner. So although I'm the founder of the business, I do not own the organization. So we do have a board. All nonprofits have a board of directors, and the board governs the organization. So your hierarchy, if you will, is your board of directors. Then you have your CEO or your executive director, and then your staff that kind of falls underneath. Hi, Sherelle. So as I'm going, I would like for it to be interactive. Hey, Jamel, if there's any questions or comments or concerns as I'm going, please let me know. I know there's a little lag. I'm here trying to catch the comments on my laptop, so I will respond in the comment section. But as I was saying, that's kind of the structure of a nonprofit organization. So no, there is no owner. I don't own the organization. Although I did found it, I don't own it. As the acting executive director and CEO, I make the decisions for the organization. And again, it's governed by the board. So the difference in being the owner is there's no profit share. So I can't go public with the organization. I can't pay out any dividends or profits as if you would if you had a for-profit organization. One of the other myths about nonprofit organizations that often comes up is people think that a well-run nonprofit should have low overhead costs. And in reality, depending on where your office space is, you still have utility bills, you have rent, you may have salaries if you have a staff. Right now, our organization is pretty small. As you can see, this is my home office. So I run the nonprofit out of this office, but I still do have to pay my mortgage. I have to keep the cable and the internet running. I have to have a business line. We also need a mailing address. So I'm paying for the post office box or the mailing address, hi Veronica, as well as all of the equipment, the laptop, printers, all of our marketing materials. So just because it's a nonprofit doesn't mean that it's free or low cost to run. Some other folks, one of the other myths that I've heard is that nonprofits don't have paid staff, they only use volunteers. Initially, you may have an all volunteer team. The hope and the goal is to grow that organization so that one, as the CEO and founder, I can also be on the payroll. Right now, I'm not being paid for the work that I do because the budget is small, but the goal is to have a salary, because this is a business. Just like you have business owners who are running their businesses, they're being paid for doing that work. A nonprofit is nothing different. It is absolutely a business. You still have a business plan. Again, you still have your CEO, you have your managers, your supervisors, your line staff, your direct service team. So the goal is to eventually have paid staff, but right now we don't. We are fully volunteer staff. What's one of the other myths? Oh, not that nonprofits can't earn a profit. So it's not that we can't earn a profit. The legal determination for the nonprofit is that all the profits have to go back into the business, whether that's, the community, whatever for us, our mission is to support survivors and raise awareness. So when we are doing fundraisers, when we are selling our t-shirts, if we're selling dinners, if we're doing skate night or something where we're raising money and people are paying us, that money that we raise or earn has to go back into providing those resources and our community events and things of that nature. We can't pocket any of that money in terms of making a profit as you would, again, if it was your for-profit business. So I know I talk fast and I ran through a lot. If you have any questions, please stop me, or again, just put them in the comments. Let me see what else. I want to make sure I cover everything that I wanted to, because I know there's a big misconception. The first thing that people think about is a nonprofit, again, not making money. If you follow me, yes, you should follow me. Follow me on all social media at Born Into Silence. That's for our nonprofit organization, Sales. You can also follow me, Sadija Smiley, on my personal page, which both of them kind of cross over because I promote, this is my passion, this is my purpose, and I believe that the experience I had is to educate others and bring awareness again to that devastating tragedy. And so it's become how I live my life. I talk about my daughter all the time, and I'm constantly working with families and mentoring mothers and aunties and cousins and uncles and dads through this process of how to walk through it. People think that you'll get over it and, oh, it's been X amount of time. Why are you still sad? Why are you still thinking about that? Or, you can have more children, or even in my case, I do have 2 other children that were born after I lost my first daughter. So people think, oh, you're blessed to have 2 kids. Some people never have any living children after their situation. And while that may be true, that doesn't change how I feel, right? Because that's my daughter. She's a part of me. I'm never, ever going to forget her. And you should never, ever expect anyone to forget their child, right? So I think one of the other things that we do in our organization as well is just bring that awareness, because it's a thing where if you're in the community, the lost community, and you've experienced this, then you kind of have a feel for what to say, how to say, who to comfort, how to comfort them. And if you're not in that community, then you may not know exactly what words are offensive or what are, some triggers or things like that. So our goal is to bridge the gap between those 2 communities, because we want to be supported, and we being a lost community have to understand, even when it's difficult, we have to tell people how to support us, because they don't know. And that's why a lot of times some of these things that are said that may sound hurtful or offensive are said because they simply don't know what else to say, but they do want to help and they want to be available to help us. And they're grasping at straws, trying to figure out, what to say, how to say it, how can I make this person's pain go away? They don't mean us any harm. They really want to help and want us to feel better. So and they will say things. So one of the things that part of our education is what not to say. And some of the things not to say, which seem obvious but are not always the case, is get over it. Never tell anyone to get over it. Everybody grieves in their own time in a different way. And even though I lost my daughter, I may meet another mom who lost her daughter at the same exact point. We still have different journeys. I can empathize with her because I've been there, but I'm not her and she's not me. So I won't know exactly how she's feeling. I can only imagine based on how I felt. So I'm not going to tell her, oh, it took me 5 years. It may take her 2 years to talk about her experience. It may take her 22 years to talk about her experience. So one of the things to never, ever say is to get over it, or, it's been X amount of years. Why are you still thinking about that? Another thing that I had a young lady tell me the other day, and I had not realized this, is for her, a trigger is when someone says, I'm sorry for your loss. And right, we all say that. The moment you hear someone has lost a child or a family member or a friend, you automatically go to, I'm sorry for your loss, because we're sorry that they had to experience that. And this young lady explained to me why it was a trigger for her is because she was saying that you can't be sorry because you don't know what I'm going through. For you should say to me, I can't imagine, or, I don't understand what you're feeling, but my prayers are with you. I'm praying your strength. So she wanted more encouraging words and affirmations versus someone putting themselves in the shoes of where she was, or feeling like they were putting themselves in those shoes. One of the other things, again, as I mentioned, you can have more children, or you have other children already. You're blessed to do that. Count your blessings. Be grateful for what you have. Yes, it's not that we're not grateful, because we are very grateful that, some women survive literally these instances where they lose their baby and they could have lost their life. So they're being told, be grateful that you're alive, because some women, didn't survive that. And while that may be true, it's not helpful. It's not helpful at all. Hi, Christina. Thank you. So it's not helpful, at all, because we are grateful. We're not being ungrateful, but at the same time, we still want our child. We still want that baby, or those babies that, were ours, and we want them here with us. We'd rather be holding them in our arms than in our hearts. So those are some of the other things to really be cognizant of. So again, I know I'm going kind of quickly. I talk fast. When I get in my zone, I get riled up about my passion, because it's something that I really feel passionate about, and I think it's important. It's a great cause, and we really need to learn to be more sympathetic and empathetic where we can, right? Because there's a difference between those two. Thank you, Charnel, for sharing that. So we want to be both sympathetic and empathetic when possible, for those folks in that journey, wherever they are, whether it was yesterday or 10 years ago. So that's kind of everything in terms of our goals and our missions. But I did again want to encourage folks who are thinking about, starting a nonprofit, who are thinking about a cause that's really near and dear, to their hearts. How can they get started? How do you go about doing that? How do you know whether or not you want it to be a for-profit or not for-profit? So it really comes down to looking at what your purpose and the mission is. Because it could be, we go into business to earn money, right? So if your purpose is really to make money, then I'm going to tell you a nonprofit is not for you. It is absolutely not for you, because a nonprofit, one, as I mentioned earlier in the video, is not owned by you, right? So as the founder and CEO of my nonprofit, I say mine, it's not mine, but as the founder and CEO of a nonprofit, I don't own it. If at any given time my board of directors decide, we don't want her in charge anymore, we want to vote her out, they can absolutely vote you out. So that's one of the things you want to really pay attention to and be keen on when you start the nonprofit. who's on your board. Because again, if they decide, you know what, we're going to get together, we're tired of Sadija, we do this, that, and the third, we are tired of her, let's vote her out, they can absolutely vote me out. Which is why when selecting my board of directors, I made sure there were people who I knew would have my back, who I know don't want my business or the organization, and that would really support me in the mission and back me up. So that's one of the things you want to look at, who's on your board, when you start to found that organization, because the board is going to be key, because you can be voted out of the organization that you started. So keep that in mind. So once you've decided, okay, yes, this is going to be a nonprofit and I really want to give back, I want to serve the community, we're going to get fired up, where does your money come from? So you will need to fundraise. People think that nonprofits have tons and tons of money from foundations, but foundations, yes, Veronica, they can get rid of you at any given time. A lot of people don't know that. So that's one of the things that we really, need to be educated about the process when we start these things. Folks really sometimes think that foundations are the total support 100% for nonprofits, and that's not the case. There's a ton of nonprofits here in the U.S., not even counting the world, who are competing for these foundations dollars. So we don't always get grants. A lot of times the money comes from the board. So your board is going to be making a contribution to the nonprofit, as well as individual donors and supporters. So if you see me doing fundraisers, this is why we're having Chipotle fundraisers and popcorn fundraisers and chocolate candy bar fundraisers, because you have to constantly raise that money in order to be able to fund the mission and the goals, especially when you're first starting out. It's hard to compete with other nonprofits who've been around for a while. They have history, they have pictures from their events, they have stats. When you're just starting, you don't have all of that data to be able to compete with them. So you have to build up that data over your 1 to 5 years. If you're lucky, maybe in 2 years, you have some data where you can kind of compete with other nonprofits and be able to get a piece of the pie. Maybe you'll get a $5,000 grant to kind of start and things like that. So yes, Linda, you have to be strategic. No friends and family. No friends and family. And that's a really good thing, a good point that you brought up, Linda, because one, if there's a lot of family members on the board, then the IRS will look at it as a foundation versus a nonprofit organization. Because foundations are usually family members who put their money together. They have a lot of money and they begin to fund other operations. So when you have a lot of people with the same last name, it appears to be a foundation versus a charitable organization. So those are two different things. Yes, Charnel, do your research. Please do your research and figure out, what category you fall under that 501c3 for the nonprofit organization. You're more than welcome, Christina. Anybody who's thinking about it, hit me up, send me an inbox. You can message me if you have any specific questions on, how to get started, or actually what category are you going to fall under, because there's a ton of 501c3s, but then it breaks down into different categories, whether it's social services, mental health, scientific, advocacy. There's a ton of, there's actually two. There's a primary category and then a subcategory that falls, under that as well. What are some of the things? So then you also have to, file your 1023 with the IRS. So you have two different applications. You have the 1023 and then a 1023 EZ. So your EZ is your short form, just like if you think about your taxes, you have the 1040 and then you have the 1040 EZ. So if you're going to be making a certain amount of money, then you would file the long form. Or if you claim to be making, because you don't know yet because you're just getting started, right? So if you think, we're going to have more than $50,000 a year for the next 3 years, then you do the long form. But if you're going to have $50,000 or less a year for the next 3 years, then you do the short form, which is the EZ. So I know I put a lot of different things out there. So I think, to start from the beginning, your first option that you want to look at, again, is what's the business that you want to do? Do you want it to be for profit or not for profit, right? Because if you want to make money and you want to be able to have dividends and shares and you want to pay out, then you don't want to have a nonprofit, because a nonprofit all of the money goes back into the organization. Now, with the money going back into the organization, you can absolutely, as the CEO, be on the payroll. So you could draw a salary from your nonprofit. But again, you have to be working in the nonprofit in order to be on the payroll. It's not like if you were to own a business and you just pay yourself, so much each month. So that's the first thing you want to look at. Then if you decide, okay, cool, the nonprofit thing is for me. I'm all about the community. We want to raise awareness around AIDS, or we want to do backpacks and book bag drives. We're going to do this. I want to help out with the church. Then you want to start to look at your board of directors. Again, you have to have at least 3 to start your nonprofit. And again, you want to look at who those 3 people are. One person is you, so you actually are on the board yourself. And then you need 2 other people. So a minimum of 3. I would say a minimum of 5, because 3 people and you being one, you're going to need some help. Right now, our board, we have 6 people on the board, and it's more of a working board because we've just started. It's been a little over a year, and so they're working with the programs and things like that as well. So you want to look at having people who's actually going to be working. You really need some worker bees in that first 1 to 3 years. You don't need anybody on your board who is just coming for the name to say, I'm on the board. Yes, I serve. No, because they're actually going to be working with you those 1 to 3 years. Yes. Nonprofit is a lot of work and tons of record keeping. Absolutely. Because this is a tax exempt organization. All of the income is tax free. So the IRS wants to know everything about every dollar. How is it going back into the organization? How much is it? Your in-kind donation. So your in-kind is anything that's not monetary. So if you get book bags or you get furniture, maybe you'll get a laptop or, a desk or something like that. Those are your in-kind. You have to report that as well. So you need to have good record keeping. So of those 3 people, 1 person is going to be your treasurer. So you want to have somebody who's really good with finances, who's going to help set the foundation up for you to get everything started. So that way from the beginning, I don't care if you have 1 client or no clients, you want to start that foundation right. The moment you get $1 donated, you want to start keeping track. You want to make sure you give out receipts, because your donors will get to write those donations off on their taxes. So again, your EIN is tied to your organization. So they're writing off that they gave $20 to you. When you file your taxes, your 990, you want to make sure that you're claiming that $20 that came in. But it is a lot of record keeping, because the IRS is like, listen, you're not paying us any taxes on this money you bringing in here. We need to see what you're doing with it. How well are you doing with it? Who's monitoring it? You need to report to the IRS everybody that's on the board. They ask for their name, their address, and their phone number. So the one thing about a board is you want to make sure those people who are on your board understand their duties and responsibilities as a board member, because as a board member, they are responsible. They are fiduciaries for your organization. So they too are held accountable for what happens to that money. Every person on that board, not just your treasurer. Anybody on that board is responsible. Everybody on that board is responsible for knowing where this money is going, how is the money being spent, and their names and address go on your application when you file with the IRS. So you've built your organization now, you've got your name, you have your at least 3 people, on the board, and then you can move into, what your mission is going to be, who's your target population, who are you going to serve, what kind of impact, are you going to make, what kind of programs do you want to have, what's that first year going to look like for you guys. You have to have bylaws. It's a lot of paperwork, y'all. I'm just going to tell you, it's a lot of paperwork. So make sure that, again, of those 3 founding people or more, you have somebody who's good with money for your treasurer, and also a secretary, someone who's a good admin that can keep records. And if you don't have these things as the founder and CEO, you're going to be doing all of this until you find somebody. So I would recommend, as you're thinking about starting this, going through in your mind, who do you know that's a good admin? Who have you worked with in the past that kept really good records? Maybe he or she was an executive assistant at your past job, or you've known them to keep the minutes for the meetings. Think about those kind of things as you start, because your board should have a secretary, someone who's good with admin, treasurer, somebody who's good with money, maybe a CPA or a bookkeeper. You're also going to want to try to find an attorney, someone who can understand the legalities. And remember, as you're finding these people, they're volunteers for you. So you don't pay them for their advice. So you don't have to go outside of your board for these areas of expertise. If you have these kind of individuals sitting on your board, it's beneficial to you because you get the free service because they're volunteering with you, and it's beneficial to them because they get to give back in a way where they're using their skills and expertise to a cause that's really important to them. Yes. So I do have a working board. Eventually we'll move to like an advisory board. But we're still going to have our working board, and then we'll have an advisory board. So folks, as they, serve their term, if they've had enough, hands in, and they want to move up to an advisory level and just provide guidance, then they can do that. But yes, and being a board chair is really difficult. It's hard to get people. Everybody signs up and they want to do it when they hear it in the beginning, but then when the rubber meets the road, people don't realize the time commitments. It takes time. People don't always realize the financial commitments, because when you're applying for these grants, the funders want to see that your board gives a crap about your mission and what you're doing, so much so that they're putting their own money into it as well, because they trust it, they believe in it, and they know that you guys have good intentions. So they're looking for the board to be contributing as well. So that's going to be part of that financial contribution and commitment that the board has. What else? I got a few more minutes. I know I talk fast. Hopefully, if you guys have any questions or you could think of anything, let me know. Like I said, I worked through this with a coach, so I could recommend some really good coaches that can help guide you through and work through everything with you and really hold you accountable, because you want to make sure you have an accountability partner to make sure you cross all your T's and dot all your I's, because when it comes to the IRS, we know they may not get you this year, but they're going to get you. So you might have got passed with your nonprofit the last 2 years and, turning your 990 late and not claiming this and not claiming that. But best believe they're coming back because they have that 3-year time frame. They're catching up to you. So yeah, that's pretty much it. For me, I wanted to just share some things with you all about, the starting a nonprofit and the purpose of it, as well as my nonprofit. So for me, again, the nonprofit that I founded is SAILS, Stillborn and Infant Loss Support. You can find us on all social media at Born Into Silence. Matter of fact, let's see if I can. Absolutely, you are more than welcome, ladies. Let's see if I can type it in down here. So I'm working on my laptop. I don't know what I'm doing, y'all. So I can't type it in, but I'll come back and do it. But you can find us on social media at Born Into Silence. You can find me, Sadija Smiley. On Instagram, it's I am Sadija Smiley. If you have questions or any concerns or anything. And if you feel so moved, as you heard the story and the plight of a nonprofit founder and CEO, if you decide you may want to donate to further our mission, please do so. You can do that from our pages. Let me see if I can type in our website here. And lastly, we are having our official launch. So we've been serving the community now for the year, but we're having an official launch brunch where we're going to do some surprises. We are rebranding, and so there'll be some new logos and colors and things like that. So we want to share that with the community, as well as our mission goals. You can meet the board, and we'll have music, we'll have brunch, we're going to have live music as well. We have a performance. We're going to do raffles and prizes. We're going to do a lot of giveaways, and then we have a panel discussion. We have a therapist, a medical doctor, OBGYN, and another survivor that survived her. She delivered twins that were stillborn, and so she's telling her story and inspiring others as well. So that's going to be Saturday, August the 24th, right here in Laurel, Maryland. You can find all the information for reservations on our page. And if you know anyone in the area that would benefit from a free ticket, we do have several sponsored tickets. So please send me a DM or an inbox if the person is willing with their information so that we can share with them some of our free and sponsored tickets. And yes, we will definitely have some live streaming for our out-of-town supporters, Queen, and those that wish they could be there but could not make it. So we will have some live streaming and pictures and videos to share with everyone. So I know this is on a 15-minute delay, like a 15-second delay rather, so I'm going to hang on for a few more seconds. But I want to thank you all for your attention this evening. I hope that it was valuable for you. I hope that you learned something new. I hope that you're inspired if you're thinking about starting a nonprofit and not bogged down by the amount of work that it is, because it's great. You really are filled when you give back, and it especially when it's something that you've experienced personally and you have that drive and that purpose. It's not for the faint at heart. So make sure it's something that you're really connected to, so that way in those days when you don't have donations, when your board is acting up and they're not able to meet things and you didn't get the grant, you have something that you're personally connected to keep pushing you through, so that you can keep working for it, because it does take some time and some work to get it off the ground, but you'll definitely reap what you sow if you faint not. So that's it, everyone. Again, I appreciate your time. If you catch this on a replay, make sure that you hashtag replay in the comments, and I'll circle back and check and see if there's any questions from anybody. Thank you, everybody. Let me see. A shout out to everybody who chimed in today. Hi, Linda. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Fancy. Thank you, Charnel. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Dramel. Who else? Who else did I forget? Anybody? Nikisha. I hope I said that right. And I think that's everybody. Shout out to Swagger Magazine for highlighting Black businesses this month. And thank you for including a nonprofit in your business selections, because yes, a nonprofit is still a business. Good night, everybody.